Well, I promised I'd do a bit of a follow-up to the Antec Dark Fleet 85, and here it is. I spent some time tonight doing a build inside it, so I've actually put my 3D Vision surround rig, which was on my high-speed PC tech station, and I went and put it into the Dark Fleet 85. So there's a couple topics I didn't really cover in enough detail when I did my initial unboxing. The first one of which is these. These are not a very good idea. Because it's just a random door that you need to open in order to get at your CD-ROM drive. Like, it's not automatic or anything. You can't just press the button and then, like, it'll open. It's just, yeah, I'm pretty amazed that that made it onto this case. One other thing that I didn't talk about before, or that I had wrong, was that you just push here in order to open the fleet swap bays. I was kind of forcing them, but yeah, you just push on this side, it releases this latch right here. That is how to get them open. Another thing that I should have showed you before was the fan filters. These are pretty clever. So they just go right onto each fan. You pull out the little tab right here, just pull that out, pull it up, clean it out, and then you just slide it right back in. So that's a pretty cool feature of this case. One other thing I didn't really talk about enough was the fleet swap bays. So here, I'm gonna go ahead and open up all the doors, and I'm gonna look inside, and I hope there's enough light for you to see in there, but ouch. Get myself on the fan. Okay, so here are the fleet swap back planes here, and there aren't a whole lot of places you can put them, unfortunately. So that's sort of the bad news, because anywhere next to these video cards, actually I'll talk more about that on the side, I guess. So fleet swap bays. So in theory, I guess you could install, if you bought more of these, or if you just slid hard drives straight in, you could install up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 hard drives, which would be a pretty tremendous capacity. But then if you come around to the side, you run into a bit of a problem. Just gonna go ahead and pull the side panel off. The case looks great with the red lights, by the way. Looks really good. I mean, no product is perfect though. So the problem you run into here is that the fleet swap bays add so much bulk to the drive cages that you can't install them anywhere near the graphics cards. I mean, these aren't terribly long graphics cards. These are GTX 480s. They're only about 9 inches long. There are cards that are longer on the market, and already they'd be right up against the SATA interfaces on the fleet swap bays. And actually, I mean, because you have to route 4 cables to it, 2 SATA data, 2 SATA power, you'd end up with most of it being blocked by the 24-pin connector up here, and this is the top slot. And then even down at the bottom, you'd end up, I mean, I'm using a modular power supply, but it has a fair number of pre-attached cables, and you'd end up with kind of a clutter here. And then on the other side, these are so full of cables that you wouldn't be able to slide hard drives in there anyway. And then you can't use any of the ones in between. So the fleet swap brackets are a bit of a miss, I think. But the good news is that you can install hard drives without them. You just slide them in, and then you gain that extra inch and a bit almost of space, and you can just plug the cables directly into the backs of the hard drives, just like with the Antec 1200. So what else did I want to talk about on this case? I really like the fans. They haven't really changed the way the fan management is done versus the 1200. You can change all of the fan speeds around here at the back with that little panel up there next to this fan. So you can switch them from high to low and vice versa. And I believe the fans actually get brighter when you change the switches. I'm having trouble finding one that gets brighter for me, but they do. You can install a fairly long power supply. You can see I've got a Quattro 1200 in here. And what else did I want to talk about? A fair number of front panel connectors. You can see I've got them routed through that hole right there. It fits very, very tall CPU heat sinks. I've actually got a co-gauge arrow in here right now. And even with the heat pipes sticking up right there, you can see we've still got maybe a centimeter or a centimeter and a half of space left once we close the side panel. So that's pretty good. What else did I want to talk about on this case? Yeah, I wouldn't have minded seeing a little bit more in terms of cable management on the back. Right now, you don't really have a whole lot of options, is the bad news, because, I mean, basically everything has to come from Just going to lose the strap here because it's making it hard for me to hold the camera. Basically, everything has to come from this hole right here. And you've only got about, well, here, you've got this much space between the motherboard backplate and then where the side panel goes on. So it's not even, like, if you compare the thickness of a 24-pin power connector to the thickness you have here, you can't even really route any cables behind the motherboard tray and expect to be able to close the case. So by the time you run an 8-pin up to the CPU, a 24-pin over here, some SATA cables up to your optical bays, potentially some SATA cables over to your fleet swap, some Molex to your front fans, some Molex to your rear fans. You run all of your front panel connectors, including your USB, your audio. You kind of wind up in a little bit of trouble, and what I wish had been included, because you see all this space here, like this is quite deep, the space behind the hard drive cages. I wish something like that could have been turned into a place to hide cables, because right now you see there's no gap here. There's no way to bring cables from the power supply up into here. Everything has to pass over this lip of metal here, where really there's not enough space to close the panel over top of it. So that was one of the challenges that I ran into with this case. One thing that I did like, though, was that the back CPU cooler access is very well positioned for my motherboard here. I have easy access to the back plate of the CPU cooler I'm using right now, and I'll be able to easily swap that out if I should so desire. Anyway, thank you for checking out my more detailed look at the Antec Dark Fleet 85. I've got my SSD installed here, and since it's just a direct SATA hookup, it's obviously running at full speed, so I've got Windows running. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers everything. Oh yeah, there's the front slots. So we got reset, 3 USB 2.0, 1 USB 3.0, front audio, and power. Oh yeah, I should show you how to hook up the USB 3.0. So I ran my USB 3.0 cable behind the motherboard, up here, okay, up here under the video cards, and then out the back panel through a little plate that they provide. Okay, so you can see it right here. And then I just plugged that into the USB 3.0 port on the back of the motherboard. That's the way all USB 3.0 implementations work right now, because there is no standardized pinout. So you pretty much have to run a standard USB cable plug around to the back of your case. There's no other real way to do it right now. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more tech tips. And just plain tech. And sometimes my cats.